Hello everyone. Today I'm going to have a lecture on the poem Essay on Man written by Alexander Pope. Before going to the poem in detail, first of all we have to have an introduction on Neoclassical age in which the Alexander Pope belongs to. Neoclassical age, marked at the beginning of the 18th century, is also known as the Age of Reason or Augustan age. Why it is known as the Age of Reason? Because the beginning of the 18th century is marked by a spirit of rationalism and scientific temper that gained sway as a result of the Enlightenment. There was an educated, genteel, urban population to whom poets began to cater, and poetry became a refined activity that appeal to the intellect rather than to emotion. So basically there is a age of reason, and most of the poetry and poets mark their obligation towards reason rather than on imagination. So it is known as age of reason. And why it is known as Augustan age? It can be considered as a revival of the period of Augustus Caesar happened in Rome during the ancient period, because the period witnessed so much development and so much progress in the field of poetry and intellect. It can be considered as the golden age of poetry. So they named this period after Augustus Caesar as Augustan age, and it is considered as the heyday of poetry and literature. As for the scientific temperament during this period, most of the writers has got a kind of scientific temperament which marks the future events they expect in the next century. That is, the scientific development happened in the 19th and 20th century. So they try to forerun this kind of activity using their literature, and it can be very clear in the epitaph written by Pope for Isaac Newton. Even though Isaac Newton dismissed the relevance of poetry in the activities of human life, Pope writes in his for the epitaph of Newton, and he reads there like this: "Nature and nature's law lay hid in night. God said, 'Let Newton be,' and all was light." So all the writers during that time carries some kind of scientific temperament in their nature, and they supported the development and progress happened in the field of science, and they try to adapt the changes happened in the natural world by inculcating these ideas in their writings. And this period is also known as Neoclassical age. Why? Because it is the revival of classical age of ancient times. The writers of during this time try to revive the tradition, techniques adopted by the classical age writers, and they even try to translate the ancient Greek and Latin classical works like Iliad and Odyssey in order to popularize the techniques prevailed during the classical age. And Pope was one among them, and he adopted such a classical style in order to elevate the techniques in writing. As for the theme, they adopted grand themes as in classical works. they didn't give much relevance to individual emotions and individual perceptions. They go for the kind of that is themes which is related to heroic activities like in the period of classical age. So by this discussion, I am winding up this session of neoclassical age for today. In the next session, we will have a discussion on the poem Essay on Man, which is written by Alexander Pope and his career. Thank you.